Joining me now is Rania Lawendi, CEO of Action for Humanity Canada, a humanitarian group. She's joining us today from Edmonton. Thank you for taking the time for CTV. We appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
What are you guys doing to try and help? Walk us through it.
So, Action for Humanity Canada is actually one of the largest NGOs in Syria. We've been there now for 11 years. We originally Syria Relief and then rebranded as Action for Humanity. In The efforts here in Canada are actually raising money to help what's going on in Syria. So we're in Idlib and in Aleppo. We've been there, like I said, for 11 years. So this is not new to us. But currently, the emergency efforts right now are with giving diesel to man the 5 hospitals to be able to get fuel and everything to the hospitals for them to work. We're giving food kits on the ground. We're trying to give hygiene kits. We're doing shelter. So any of, obviously, a lot of Canadians don't know how cold it actually is in Syria. And a lot of families are scared to even go back into buildings or be in buildings. And so we're trying to have temporary shelters made, obviously medication and first aid supplies, blankets, all of the kind of winterization kits that are needed. It is catastrophic. Another thing that I think is really important, Todd, for people to know is there isn't really a government structure or organizational unit. So it's really these NGOs that are on the ground that are trying to help get families out of the rubble. And as you were saying, hope is waning quickly because it's now day four of the earthquake. And, literally we have our workers and many of the volunteers pulling people with their bare hands with the cement because there aren't enough machines. Also, Action for Humanity is providing machines. And then the big thing that we're doing is the mobile clinics to help with obviously all of the first aid situations that need to be done that the hospitals are not able to take care of.
Can you also tell us just a little bit about how different the situation is? You were sort of alluding to it a moment ago, but between what we're seeing in Turkey and then just across the border in northern Syria, it does seem to be very different situation.
Oh, it's completely horrible. I'm encouraging everyone to please give their donations as much as they can to Syria. And the reason is so AFAD is the disaster relief arm of the Turkish government. So you literally have a full system in place. Obviously, the devastation has been massive in Turkey, but you also know if you're looking at the news that there are other countries that are deploying people to help them and deploying money and aid and all of those things. The first international aid that went through the border was just today. And so Syria is pretty much left on its own. This is a country that has been ravaged by war for the last 12 years. The area that's been hit by the earthquake is completely on its own. There's no government there. There's no system in place. There isn't the machinery. There isn't the apparatus in place. And so, you have people that are internally displaced people who have gone through war for the last 12 years, and now they've been hit by these same massive earthquakes. The last reports that I've seen, we have over 2,000 buildings that have been partially basically wrecked by the earthquake, and 500 buildings completely decimated. So imagine not even having the machinery that's going to be able to pull the cement and pull the people out. You don't have the hospitals, you don't have the electricity, you don't have any of these things that are in place the way you would in another country, or if something were to happen in Canada, for instance.
And you think about it too. I mean, these are people who have been through a devastating civil conflict that's gone on for more than 10 years. Then, of course, dealing with the pandemic, world attention no longer on the situation like it once was, and now these earthquakes as well, Rania.
Yeah, I was in Syria actually in May, and the situation, as a CEO for a humanitarian organization, I travel a lot. The worst I've ever seen is actually in Syria, and it's important for us as Canadians to really elevate their voices with our government to make sure that we don't forget that they've been in conflict for this many years, that we don't forget that they need that need, and then remembering that yes, we're an emergency response, but one of the things with Action for Humanity is that we're about sustainable development, and so right now we're in the emergency response phase, but after that we're going to have to be rebuilding, and the decimation is massive, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Todd, but we have some of our staff who have actually passed away with their families. Many of our staff have families who have passed away. And so imagine having to do this work and going through that grief and everything else. There isn't a Syrian that hasn't been in that area that hasn't had some sort of loss. And so the rebuilding is also going to take a lot. And we're going to need the Canadian government to make a commitment for that. And Canadians also. We have our website, actionforhumanity.ca. If they can visit our Instagram, Facebook, it's at AFH Canada, and we're really encouraging everyone to please donate. We've been there for a long time. We are on the ground, and we are trying to do the work. And there are many other organizations also doing great work.
Actionforhumanity.ca is the address, correct?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Rania Lewende joining us from Edmonton. Thank you so much for taking the time and getting the word out to people watching across our country, Rania.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity.